So for those of you who are using Condens on a regular basis, you probably have noticed that the releases we had in the last couple of weeks and months were really focused towards improving the stakeholder experience. So a few months back, we started with giving you tools or more powerful tools to make your artifacts more engaging. So for example, we added smart clusters, embeds, tables, column layouts, and so on. And basically like all of our work built towards the release that we had a few days back, which is our new stakeholder experience, what we call Insights Magazine. So in general, the idea for this talk would be to walk you through these features and then go into the Q&A, as I said. Maybe one step back, why did we focus so much on this during the last few months? And that has to do with one of the core missions we have at Condens, which is to help your customer knowledge to have more impact and improve decision-making throughout the organization. Basically, we want you to help, we want you to be able to transform your organization into more customer-centric. Yeah, basically, what we want to have is like to help you, your customer knowledge to have more impact. And I think a core way of how we can, as a tool can do that, is to help you deliver relevant insights in a way that is engaging, easy to understand, and easy to discover when your stakeholders need it. But you already, I mean, I don't tell you anything new when I say to you that in order to deliver relevant insights, you first have to know your stakeholders really well. So you have to know who are they, what roles do they have, what teams, are there different topics they are more interested in than others, what questions did they raise in the past, also where are they normally consuming their research. All of these things you really have to understand to make relevant research and present them in a way that is really having an impact. Of course, there's like multiple ways how to do that. You could do listening rounds, surveys, interviews, but I don't like, you probably know better than anyone else how to do that. Just I think it's important to understand that all of the things that we can do as a tool for you, we can give you kind of the capabilities, but the content has to come from you. So let's jump right in. The first part would be, as I said, what we built more or less a few months back is to help you make artifacts more engaging. For everybody that's not so familiar with Condens, artifact, that is like all documents, all output documents of people who do research. So this might be, for example, a report, a finding, a persona, journey maps, anything in this direction. So not raw data, not also not notes from an interview, but interpreted findings. And in order to have engaging artifacts, there are a few things to have in mind. I think the first one is to find the right resolution for your audience. Is your audience seeking more in-depth reports and is really going in like about the details, or is it more something that has to be easy to understand, easy to grasp, and really fast? I think with Condens you can have a good compromise of both by having embedded artifacts. I'll show you that in a minute. Maybe it's a good idea to jump right into one of those artifacts. So this is how one of those artifacts might be looking for your stakeholders. This is from our demo account, which we show, for example, when we do demos, where we have the travel app, Just Travel. And here are a few best practices already in there that we heard from our customers work really well. This keeps popping up, good. So first we have a a summary of your report, for example, in this case. And this is important because this summary is also shown in linked previews, for example, when you share it in Slack, but also in Condens for the previews in the lists and so on. The second part is meta information. So these are totally customizable in Condens, and they help you to make things findable, and also they enable you to filter them for example, customizable views and feeds and so on. Then we have a really good structure. It should be really easy to understand how the structure is. So here, for example, we have first the research goal. We have, for example, here a table. That's something new we added a few months back to understand like what was the setting of the project. And then we have findings. And here it's also something you should note, that we opted in this case to not have the findings just as part of the chapter itself, and so have a very long chapter, but to have them embedded here. So they are here. I think you can already get the gist of them just by having them there. But for all of the stakeholders that are more interested in the details, they can go in and really dive deeper without the whole report getting too long and too overwhelming. One thing that, to be honest, has been there in Condens from the very start, but that is, in my opinion, really important and really effective, is to have clips of your participants in there, because it's way more effective to hear your participants talk than just you listing the findings to your team. Also, it helps you as the one who did the research position yourself as part of the team and not being the one that criticizes their work, for example. You are kind of part of the team and helping them, which makes like a way better atmosphere in my experience. Another good thing is, of course, like you can have like all kinds of other things like charts or embedded things from other tools. That's something that's also really working well, is to have, like you might also like section where you have reports that are maybe also interesting to your stakeholders. Cool, but now let's go to the next part, which is kind of the main part, the big release that we build up to, which is the new Insights magazine. The Insights magazine is replacing the old Stakeholder repository, but I think it's really important to understand it's still a dedicated stakeholder interface. In fact, I would say it's way more powerful because you can customize it to the needs of your stakeholders. Technically speaking, there's one difference. Stakeholders don't have to log in via repo.condens.io anymore. So before this release, we had two separate URLs, @condens.io for researchers and repo.condens.io for stakeholders. Now everybody can log into Condens via @condens.io. Old links will still work. There will be, or there are, if people go to repo.condens.io, they will be forwarded to the new interface. That's not a problem. And it's still a dedicated interface because the UI adapts to the user rules. So for example, if a stakeholder doesn't have any access to any raw data, any projects or so, they don't see the left side navigation where you have the project and so on at all. They are really focused just on the findings. So to this Insights magazine release, I think there are three main parts I want to talk about. The first one is the customizable front page where they land and where you can present the most important findings. Then we have a totally new AI-powered conversational search. I want to go in depth with this. And then also we have a solution for more complex settings like bigger enterprises where you have multiple products or multiple teams or really different stakeholder groups. Let's go through them one. Okay, I'm in Condens now. This is how Condens looks like. And you see on the left-hand side, the new standard page where you land when you just open Condens is the magazine. And here you can already see this looks way different than what we had before. And this is all customizable. You can think of the magazine a little bit like a big artifact. So anything you can do in a document-based artifact, or most of the things you can do there, you can also do here and a little bit more. There are some best practices. My colleague Sarah also wrote a really good article about that. I think we can send you that maybe in a follow-up email, or maybe Eva, you could also add this to the chat for more details. But there are some best practices that we heard from our customers that work really well for them. The first one is to have a really good introduction and onboarding here. Really think of your stakeholders, maybe of some of those that never have been to Condens, and here you can really onboard them so they find what they're looking for fast. So we have something like what they can find here. You have something like what they can do with it. And also what is really good is to have points of contact in case they have questions, or maybe want to suggest new research or anything like that. Some of our customers also have like a dedicated embedded artifact here where they go more into depth about their repository structure, like an how-to and things like that. And you can add this here, so it doesn't clutter up a lot of the front page, but stakeholders can still go in and learn more. And then I think the most important building block of this front page are these feeds. So these are all published artifacts, and you can define those feeds with filters. So when we go into edit mode here, you can really see here this smart cluster icon, and then you can see and change the filter. So for example, in this feed here, we have all findings, affinity maps, and everything about the product Airport Navigator. But for example, we could add, let's say we only want to have reports in here, and we just add the filter to that. We can also, for example, change the sorting if we'd like to. Click on save, and then only reports are in. Let's click on done editing. As I said, you can add anything that you want in here. It is important, what is still the case, it's kind of the same logic as with the stakeholder repo, is that artifacts have to be published to be in here. So it's not that just you create any artifact where you create some nodes or so and they will end up here. No, it's only the published artifacts. And at the end here, stakeholders still have the opportunity to see all of the, like a list of all published artifacts to this magazine. So, did I forget anything? I don't think so. The second part, what we are really proud of, is our new search experience. So we know that search is really a key factor in finding, for stakeholders to find knowledge. And we have the new search experience here. Actually, I did forget one thing. How does this look for stakeholders? We have the stakeholder preview here on the 3 dots in the top right. And when we click here, this is how this whole magazine experience will look like for a stakeholder that has no access to any raw data. So you see it's really focused on the content here, and there's nothing on the left side. As soon as they are invited to see some raw data, they of course will also have the left-hand side menu with all the items they need. Okay, back to search. So we moved the search to the top of here to like make it more prominent, so stakeholders really find it fast. And now we have 2 search modes, so to say. We have the ask a question AI search, and we have a keyword search. You can change the two modes by clicking this button here, and then, for example, go to keyword search. And here, that's basically the powerful keyword search that we still have. So you can use all kinds of filters for that. But I think what is more interesting for you is the AI search. What you can have here is you have the history, of course, and what you as a researcher can do is to define recommended searches for your stakeholders, so they already know, okay, what kind of questions can I ask? And when they first come to the repository, this is what they'll see here instead of their history. So could, for example, have a question of like, what are usability issues with the airport navigator app? That is something that you could ask in the settings, and then you still can add filters. But let's maybe start without the filters. Click on submit. And then the AI is searching through all published artifacts in this magazine. So we really put a lot of effort into that the AI is not hallucinating. So it's really only basing the answers on the published information in your repository. I think one important thing is also to understand that it's not going through the raw data. So this is not something where you just have highlights and it kind of interprets all those highlights, but it goes through the published and interpreted by you data that is there. What you can see here as well is based on the question, the AI understood, okay, there are some filters that might improve the answers, and you can see them here, for example, and we could add them, and then it's regenerating the answer based on like a more defined set of. Another really important part is, of course, that everything the AI says should be, there should be sources for that, and we try to make it really easy to go in and really see what kind of information do we really have here. Is there maybe some kind of wrong information or wrong interpretation? So you see the information here, and when you click on them, you can really go into the data. And what you can also do is to ask a follow-up question. So for example, tell me more about the customer support. And then it gives you more information on this question, and you can, refine your questions, go into depth with some of those things and so on. Another thing that you can do with the search now is to save your conversation. Let's do that. And so this conversation now is always here, and you can jump back and see what answers were there. Cool. Then I think that's everything about the search that I want to show. One good thing also about the AI search. What we try to do is to make the AI search as helpful as possible. And so this is why we try to, like, the AI tries to understand the type of question. And sometimes if it thinks, okay, this is more like a keyword search, it also suggests, don't you want to rather use the keyword search? For example, we could go for goodness. Let's hope it works. So here you see it's a different kind of answer. It lists all of the personas, but you could also say, hey, you can also go into the keyword search and search exactly for personas. Cool. So, and then the last really big one here is our solution to more complex settings. So for example, imagine you're working in a enterprise with multiple products that don't have as much overlap, or with different stakeholder groups, or with different levels of stakeholders that have access to different sensitive information. And our solution to that is that you can have multiple magazines. So here, for example, we have the general travel repository, but then we have a magazine that is only for the Navigator app. And each of those magazines can have its own landing page and its own scope. And to understand scope, I think it's good to go into the magazine settings here. And here we see you can limit the magazine with filters. So for here, for example, it's limited on the product, and this will limit the available top level artifacts. So for example, here are only artifacts that have the artifact information airport navigator. Of course, information that is embedded in them is still available. And the second part to this is that you can limit the access to each of those magazines. So for example, you could set up a magazine that is only for, let's say, leadership, that has full access to also maybe strategic research that is not open to all of the whole company. And this way you can really make sure that only the people that you want here, that should have access, can have access. So here, for example, we have the group executive team. You can add this and remove like all stakeholders and so on. And then only the executive team will have access to this. And of course, each stakeholder, each user in general only has access to, or sees the magazine that they have access to. Cool, then maybe a quick outlook, sneak peek in what is still to come. What are we planning in terms of stakeholder experience? The first part is we want to double down on the meet your stakeholders where they are. This is why we're working on magazine search directly in Slack. We're also looking into Teams. It's not 100% clear how easy it is to do there, but for Slack, we're pretty confident that we can do that. So your stakeholders could just kind of ask the question directly in Slack, and it will get an answer in Slack directly. The second part is we want to close the feedback loop. So one of the next things we're working on is analytics on the magazine usage and search topics. Yeah, I think that was also the answer to Daniela's question. So we're not entirely sure how exactly we'll do that, but the idea is that you can see, okay, which topics were searched for. So you have kind of the back channel and understand, okay, what is interesting. And there's another idea that we are exploring is to maybe have like a whole functionality or a feature that helps your stakeholders to request and suggest research. So we're not entirely sure how this might look like, but maybe something like a direct back channel to you that you could activate or deactivate depending on your preferences and organization.